It's funny. We often think that to really innovate, you need more money, more resources, a bigger team. But what if the opposite were true? What if having serious limitations, less cash, fewer materials, was actually the secret ingredient for a huge breakthrough? It sounds totally backwards, I know. But today we're diving into something called frugal innovation, a powerful idea that actually turns constraints into a creative superpower. And we're going to start with a story that seems to defy all logic. So let's dive right in with a story that honestly sounds flat out impossible. It's from the world of healthcare, and it completely shatters what we think of as world class, and more importantly, what it should cost. $2,000. That is how much a complex heart surgery costs at a hospital group in India called Narayana Health. Now, to give you an idea of how wild that is, the exact same procedure right here in the United States can set you back anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000. The difference is just staggering. But you're probably wondering, okay, but what about the quality? And that's where this story gets even more incredible, because when we look past the shocking price tag and actually compare the data, it's not just about the cost, it's about patient outcomes, and believe it or not, the hospital's bottom line. Okay, this is where it just blows your mind. Look at these numbers. Not only is the cost a tiny fraction of the US price, but Narayana Health has a lower patient mortality rate than the US average. So the outcomes are actually better. And get this, their net profit margin is higher. Just let that sink in for a second. They're delivering better results for less money, and they're more profitable. How is that even possible? Well, how did they pull it off? The Wall Street Journal had a great way of putting it. They called them the Henry Ford of heart surgery. And that's because they took principles from a factory assembly line and applied them to medicine. They broke down the super complex surgical process into specialized steps. Doctors would master one or two parts of the procedure, doing them over and over, and as we all know, practice makes perfect. This drives quality way up and costs way down. So the story of Narayana Health isn't just some one-off miracle, right? It's a perfect example of a much bigger idea at play. It really makes you ask, how is this kind of radical improvement possible? And what's the core philosophy here that we can all learn from? Now, I know you're probably thinking, okay, this is just aggressive cost-cutting, right? Squeezing every last penny out of the system. But no, that's not it at all. Not even close. If the goal was just to be cheap, it would fail spectacularly. Frugal innovation is a totally different way of thinking about how to solve a problem. And here's what it is, in a nutshell. It's about starting with the most basic, fundamental need, using as few resources as humanly possible, and, most importantly, stripping away every single thing that isn't absolutely essential. So it's not about making a cheaper version of what already exists. It's about going back to square one and completely rethinking the problem to create more value for more people, especially when things are tough. It really all comes down to a few key principles. You zero in on what really matters to the user, you get ruthless about eliminating bells and whistles, you make the design super simple, and you build something that's tough, easy to use, and of course, affordable. It's a sophisticated strategy of subtraction. It's about being incredibly smart with less, not just being cheap. Now, this do more with less mindset has some massive implications, especially when we apply it to some of the biggest environmental challenges we face. So let's look at how this is being used as a business strategy to create both social and economic value in the world of clean technology. Take a look at this. It's called the solar bottle bulb, and it is just brilliantly simple. In places like the Philippines, a lot of homes are built tightly together without windows, and they don't have reliable electricity. This device, it's just a plastic bottle, some water, and a little bit of bleach, is installed in the roof. It refracts sunlight into the home and gives off the same amount of light as a 55-watt bulb, all day long for free. It costs about $1 to make, and it's bringing safe light to hundreds of thousands of people. Or how about this, the solar cooker? It's used all over Tibet, a place that has tons of sunshine, but not a lot of fuel like wood. Instead of burning wood or animal dung to cook, which causes deforestation and serious lung disease from the smoke, this simple device uses a curved mirror to focus sunlight onto a pot. It uses a totally free, clean, local resource to solve a fundamental human need. These solutions are incredible for sure. But this mindset isn't just for creating brand new gadgets from scratch. It can also be used to completely reimagine something most of us take for granted. Let's talk about the refrigerator and how one company completely reimagined it for rural India. So the company, Godrej, didn't just try to make a cheaper version of a normal fridge. They started by looking at their customers' reality. The power grid was unreliable, homes were small, and income was low. So they threw out the bulky, expensive compressor and replaced it with a simple cooling chip like you'd find in a computer. Then they slashed the number of parts from over 200 down to just 20. And the result? The ChotoCool, a small, portable $70 fridge that can run for hours on a battery. They didn't shrink the old solution, they invented a brand new one. Now, here's a really important point. It's easy to look at these examples and think, this is just a strategy for emerging markets or for nonprofits, but that's not the case at all. This mindset is actually becoming a central driver of innovation for some of the biggest companies in the world. At its heart, this is all about the power of simplification. And you can see this principle everywhere. I mean, think about Apple. You wouldn't call them a frugal company, but look at what they did. When they created the iPhone, they got rid of the physical keyboard. With the iPad, they took away even more. They won by eliminating the non-essential to create something that was simpler, more intuitive, and ultimately a much better product. And that really brings us back to this timeless idea from Leonardo da Vinci. This is the very soul of frugal innovation. It's not a compromise. It's not a step backward. It is a massive leap forward in design and in thinking. And it's achieved by intelligently and creatively doing so much more with so much less. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Frugal innovation teaches us that our biggest constraints, whether it's less money, fewer resources, tougher conditions, they aren't liabilities. They can actually be our greatest creative assets. It totally flips the script. It proves that the most powerful question we can ask isn't, what could we do if we just had more? But rather, what amazing things can we achieve right now with exactly what we have?